Thank you all for being here. I will be the first presentation of Geek Girls of this year. So basically, I'm going to talk about vulnerabilities. That's the topic that I worked today in MC Digital. And I'm going to try to understand how we can become from a threat thing to defense as well. So before we jump in the theme, I want to talk a little bit about me and my background. So today I'm a cybersecurity analyst. I work at MC Digital, which is part of MC, and that you all know from the stores of the retail company like Continente Modelo. I believe you all know that. So I have almost 5 years of experience, and MC was my first experience in the market job, in the marketplace. So basically, I entered in MC Digital in 2021. I started in a GRC team, and into 2022, I moved to a more operational team, which is security operation, and where I'm on right now. So let's jump in to understand the topic and what I'm about to talk about. So first of all, why should vulnerabilities be a concern, you question? And why should companies also be aware of this? And why should companies also took a look into this and consider this as an important to remediate? So as you all know, cybersecurity has been expanding even more the past years. Cyber attacks are also known as a community and are also a problem that companies had. And a few years ago, it is becoming more and more bigger. The attackers have become even more worse through these years. But even so, sometimes companies or the management, the boards, believe that cybersecurity is a cost over an investment. But is it really that way? Or should it be that way? Should it really be that thought on this? Well, I'm bringing here a news, some parts of the news that will show you the opposite of this view. So basically, the news says that the vulnerability was found in Apache, and at the same day, the Apache made available a patch to solve this vulnerability. There was a company named Equifax that knew about this patch, had applied it on some of the systems, but didn't apply it all. What happens next is that 3 days later, attackers found this vulnerability, breached into the system, and gained access to it, and stayed there for 5 months. In 5 months, they didn't notice any strange activity. And why did that happen? Because the detection tool that they have wasn't working as expected. So let's see the timeline. So first of all, 7th of March, vulnerability disclosure, patch released. 3 days later, vulnerability was exploited. Then what happens is that they stole a lot of personal data of clients. And after 6 months, they only noticed because they fixed the issue that they found on the detection tool. What we can learn about this is that they knew about the patch, they applied it, but not all of the systems, which has become clearly a problem. Also, hackers could do their job without even being noticed. Detection clearly failed because they only noticed 5 months later. And, of course, this results in millions of costs. Not only in settlement costs, but insurance recovery as well, and also in controls that they had to implement. So if this could be avoided, yeah, it could. But it wasn't, and the impact was devastating. So, of course, cybersecurity, even though you can see the profit of it, it is an investment and can, of course, make situations like this doesn't happen, or at least doesn't happen at the same, like with these outcomes. So, what happens next is that, or what happens today is technology arises every day. And companies want to apply it if they see some kind of profits of it, some kind of benefits within it. Even that technology, so you try to apply that in your company, you make integrations, complexity grows. And with complexity, some things are not taken into consideration, and vulnerabilities emerge, of course. And who are going to see this as an advantage? Hackers. They will try to exploit it. Okay, so before we start to understand how can we actually change the mindset on this. So first of all, I want you to understand what a vulnerability is. So basically, a vulnerability is a flaw that it can be found in a system, in procedures, internal controls, and could also be exploited by a threat actor. And there are some key concepts, some conceptual terms that I want you to understand. So first of all, when we talk about a specific vulnerability that was identified, we call it a CVE. And the CVE is the ID of the vulnerability that we have. Then we have CVSS, which is basically the severity of that vulnerability. That could go from low to critical. Attack vector is a method that we can exploit that vulnerability, even if it's local, even if it's by network. Then remediation is the term that we use to see what kind of fix that we have for that vulnerability. Could it be a patch? Could it be a fix of configurations that are allowed? Then EPSS, which means exploitation likelihood, the probability of the exploitation to happen. Misconfiguration, the way that when it comes for scanning, it's like the tool that we use to identify the same vulnerabilities. And if there is an exploit available, if it is public, if there is a proof of concept, and that's it. When it comes to vulnerabilities, that's the main terms. Of course, it exists more, but for today, I believe this is all necessary. So, okay, when panic hits, let's talk about a story. So imagine that you have an organization that has a wide infrastructure and has everything in it. Different types of operating systems, IoT devices, OT devices, legacy systems, also Kubernetes, cloud, etc. Everything joined in the same infrastructure. So I want you all to meet Anne. And Anne is basically a member of cybersecurity team. And she was given a challenge. And the challenge was to identify the vulnerabilities that across the infrastructure of the team. So she accepts the challenge, let's go. She uses a scanner to see the vulnerabilities that are present on the infrastructure, and she finds out that she has 50,000 of vulnerabilities. She's like, what? What the hell am I going to do now with this information? What is the purpose, or where should I begin? Like, it's good like panicking. So this is the point start, and of course, panic hits. So she asks herself, what am I going to do? And here's the thing. She also makes some introspective questions like, should I fix all the vulnerabilities? Are they really important? All of them, the same severity. Let's go answer to N. So let's first try to break down the problem. So we know that we have a total number of vulnerabilities of 50,000 in total. But how this can distribute when it comes to severity? So when it comes to severity, she really realizes that she has 300 vulnerabilities, a really different result that she sees here. And she sees, okay, if I detect this and there are some vulnerabilities that are really critical, maybe I should start with the critical ones and let the others do the rest of it. To the next priority, I mean. So, okay, she finds out that no, they aren't equally important. They have different levels of severity. And severity is really important to prioritize your efforts and to understand what you should do first. Then, when it comes to is severity is the only option we have? No. We can have other criteria as well to even shorter the scope of priorities. Okay, she's curious, and I'm going to show you, not only to her, but also to you. So there is something that is really important here, and it is about context. Not only the vulnerability here, and trying to understand what kind of scope or the context of a vulnerability, but also the asset that is affected by that vulnerability. From vulnerability, we all seen that severity is also a really important criteria. But also exploitability, if there is something that exists in the market, if there is something that was released and hackers are using it. if there is something that could actually exploit these vulnerabilities, and these are known by the industry. Also, the attack vectors that we have, and impact that that vulnerability could also have if they were attacked. When it comes to asset, and this is something that we didn't talk about, but is that asset, what kind of importance does that asset have to the company? Is something that really is important to business to work? It's something that is really necessary to guarantee that the normal operation of the business continues to work as expected? Is this asset internet exposed? Is it something that is only internal? What kind of environment are we speaking of? Are we talking about a production environment, a test environment, and what type of asset it is? It is a server, it is a workstation, or is it? And these two main topics here are important to guarantee or even to shorten these kind of priorities that we have. So now she knows I can actually find my priorities, which is good. In here, I show you how we can manage those same topics, that are those same criteria, and how we can even prioritize that. I'm going to give you an example, and I'm not going to pass this table. But for instance, when it comes to critical priorities, which are one that we should have the main focus, basically, if we have a severity of high and critical, we should have into consideration that. But not only if the EPSS is higher than 90%, and also if the attack vector is by network, which enlarge here our attack vector. Exploitability, we know there is a clear exploit available, which is also a problem. And the type of asset, well, it is a server, which means it has an application on it. It is on production, and it is also internet facing, so it has a higher probability of being exploited. And also, from business perspective, it is critical, very high. Okay, so we should start here and then move to the others. Okay, but now she realizes that she did this on day one. But is this something that she stopped at that day? Imagine that eventually and ideally she resolves all of these vulnerabilities in a perfect world. She was going to be safer next day? No. And why is that? Because vulnerabilities do not stop in time. They arise every day. Every day are making public new vulnerabilities. So this is not a stop job, just for one day. This is something that is necessary to do all days. So for that, it is necessary a vulnerability management program. And that's what should Anne be focusing now. Okay, so what is this vulnerability management program? So basically, it is a cycle and a continuous process that we can guarantee that all phases, that we accompany all phases of vulnerabilities, like discovery, like we do analysis, we do remediation, mitigation, and to guarantee that they are all solved. So in MC Digital, we follow these steps. We guarantee first, when it comes to inventory, we need to get to know what kind of assets do we have in our infrastructure. So first, we need to have an inventory. Otherwise, we won't know what we should see when it comes to vulnerabilities. So this is an important part, and without this, the rest doesn't work. After that, we are worried about identify all the vulnerabilities that we have on our infrastructure. So we have to have some methods like scans to guarantee that the vulnerabilities are seen. After that, we have to make our analysis, which means our prioritization. What are we going to focus first? What is really need to be focused first than the others? Why? What makes that vulnerability really more important? And after that, we have to communicate to the teams that are going to solve this. Then, remediation is a responsibility of the teams. They are responsible to understand, to try to see the vulnerability, and also to guarantee that this is fixed over a patch, over a configuration, etc. So then, vulnerability management enters the scene again to verify if the vulnerability was solved or not. And after that, we report it to all of the stakeholders that are involved in the program, because it's also important to see the evolution that the team is having, and or the company is having when it comes to vulnerabilities. So, as you've seen, or as you hear me, vulnerability is not just one team does the job. Vulnerability management needs a lot of teams to guarantee that this actually works. So basically, we have like the security teams, which are of course important. Like for instance, threat intel. So we can even prioritize more a vulnerability. Imagine that we know that a vulnerability is being exploited in retail. When it comes to MC, it makes total sense, so we can prioritize a vulnerability because it may actually affect us, so we need to take that into consideration. And we also have a red team with the pen tests and some information that also some vulnerability that you can detect, and we also talk to the red team and actually see if it's critical to us or not. For the teams that also are responsible to guarantee the remediation, like infrastructure teams, dev teams, support teams, they are of course necessary because they will guarantee that this will be solved, this will disappear. And then asset management, so you can know the inventory part that I speak of the previous slide. And then, of course, this doesn't work if it doesn't have like the power of the board or the management. It's really necessary they can endorse this, otherwise it won't work as expected. It should be something that all should be worried. I speak of these teams, but actually the team or the company as a whole is really important to guarantee that this works. So if an alert shows up on your computer to patch your system, please do it for the sake of vulnerability management. So okay, to conclude, Anne, she learned a few things here. She panicked first, but then she stayed calm and she understood what she should really prioritize. And she understood that she didn't need just a scanner. She needed context, asset ownership, and of course the right teams to act, otherwise this won't work. And again, vulnerability management is not about fixing vulnerabilities, it's about managing risk through context, ownership, and collaboration. So Anne has the key now and could actually resolve vulnerabilities and also endorse this to the company and guarantee that the company is safer every day. And that's all, guys. I hope you all enjoy it. Thank you.